What's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are doing a full blonde color correction, so stay tuned. Excited to dive into today's video because today's model has a full color correction. And I know sometimes we can look at blondes and we might not think that it's a full color correction or might not put as much thought or effort into it as we would with somebody who has like level 5 hair and it's brassy orange, right? But today's video is for sure a color correction, but I'm gonna walk you through step by step how to easily tackle all of the different things that we have going on, and it's gonna be really, really valuable. So I'm gonna be combining a couple different techniques into today's model. I'm gonna be doing a full highlight, I'm gonna be doing color in between her foils, I'm gonna do a shadow root, and some bowlyage at the shampoo bowl. I hope I said that right. I know a lot of you guys have asked for me to do this particular technique, so I'm gonna show you guys my version of it, and we're gonna be doing just a lot of different things along the way to really transform this client's color correction situation into something that is so seamless and blended and beautiful blonde. So let's get started. All right, so this is our before. As you guys can see, we have a lot of different things going on. It's been about 3 months since she got her roots done. But you guys can see there's a very solid line of demarcation up here. And then we kind of have this like mid band, and then we have some banding kind of through the ends, a lot of like golden tones and dimension. And so we're gonna be breaking through not only the roots, but also through a lot of these ends and this kind of like brassy, goldeny color down here at the ends. She just has some old lowlights that have been stuck through in the ends. So I'm actually gonna show you guys exactly with each one of these bands how we're gonna tackle them, but it's gonna be a huge transformation, and I promise you, you guys are not gonna want to miss this. So make sure to stay tuned till the end for every single formula and every single step that we do. Okay, so I'm gonna start by mixing up our lightener, and what we're gonna be doing is we're actually gonna be doing kind of a hybrid between my full highlight technique and adding in a little bit of a shadow root. So I'm gonna be mixing up about 1.5 scoops to start, and I'm gonna start with 25 volume. Now she has pretty light hair to begin with, so that's why I'm starting with 25. I don't think we need to really increase it. We'll probably go up to 30 when we get up to like the front of our hair and stuff, the top. But we're also gonna be spacing out some of our just popped up. Has that ever happened to you guys? Oh my gosh, now I gotta scoop around for the lid. Here we go, found it. Okay, as I was saying, we're mixing up about 25 volume. As you can see, my 30 volume exploded a little bit, so it's probably closer to 28 volume. So in order to kind of counteract that, if that ever happens, we are going to be putting in Olaplex. And the typical standard recommendation of what they recommend is about 1/4 or 1/8 of an ounce, sorry, 1/8 of an ounce mixed in with about 1 scoop of lightener. So technically we would be just under 1/4 for that. But if we want to dilute our lightener just a little bit more, you can add a little bit more Olaplex, and it'll actually just kind of bring down the strength of the lightener. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to Olaplex. They have tons of answers over there, but that's gonna be how we're gonna make it back down to 25 volume. So if that's confusing, don't stress it. When you're mixing up your formula, just mix up equal parts 20 and 30, but that's gonna be how we salvage this one here. All right, so to start out, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be doing a full highlight. You guys can see that her blonde goes pretty much all the way down through, and still that line of demarcation is pretty much all the way down there as well. So we don't wanna just tackle the top or the mohawk section. We wanna make sure that we're doing the entire head, because we don't wanna have this line of demarcation down here either. So we're gonna be doing a full highlight, and then what I'm going to do is, because she has those bands that I showed you guys in the first before photo, you know, we've got the roots, and then we've got kind of a little bit of banding here, which is just some leftover like natural low light. Then we've got an overly highlighted section, and then as we get down in here, you guys can kind of see we've got a little bit more of that dimension. And really what this has come from was when somebody was doing the highlights, they didn't pull through. They pulled through to about here, but then they left some of those ends out, and so that's what creates this warmth and a little bit of that kind of goldeny dimension. It's not terrible, but this was something that she actually mentioned when she came in to see me, that she's like, my ends just feel kind of goldeny. So that's how we're gonna tackle these, is we're actually gonna be doing something at the bowl, just like a little light bleach wash, because I don't think we need to pull through or do anything like that there. She doesn't have a ton of it in there, But I'm going to be showing you guys a technique that we're going to do at the bowl to really kind of help brighten up these ends after we do the full highlight. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to section her off and we're going to get started. Okay, so to section her off, I usually just take this top section, kind of right everything that's in front of the ears, and I just section it off up out of my way to get started whenever we're doing a full highlight. So that's out of my way. And then we're just gonna go in and we're gonna start down here in this bottom section. This is gonna be for anybody who has kind of that depth underneath there. And like I said, you guys can see that she still has a lot of that line of demarcation. So we do wanna do a full. And in between these foils, we're gonna be adding in some colors. So it's gonna be really natural and super blended. So I'm gonna take my first section here and we'll clip everything else up out of the way. And you guys can see, I'm going to, this isn't a super fine baby light. Sometimes around the hairline I'll do a fine baby light, but I'm not too concerned about it for her because we are gonna be dragging in color in between, so I don't really wanna do it super fine. I'm doing just a regular highlight right here. And there is this hair right around her ear. We'll actually tackle this when we get to the front section. So I'm just gonna tuck that right up there. That'll be when we get to the front. I'm gonna take my first foil, and I'm just using regular foils, you guys. Nothing fancy. These are just like the Reynolds foils that you get from Cosmoprof or your beauty supply store, torn in half. Nothing fancy about them, but I am using my frame art brush. And the reason why I love using this brush is it allows me to get into this tight spot right up in her hairline. Really nice and precise, and it has these really soft bristles. Like, I honestly could not imagine using any other brush to highlight. So I have this actually linked in my Amazon favorites if you want to check that out there. And I'm just pulling through these little sections where she has some of these extra lowlights. I'm tackling those because, again, we want to make sure that we don't have that like warmth still in her end. So you guys can see that was a little bit of a low light right there, and just kind of feathering through the rest. And because we have Olaplex in this, I'm not too concerned about it like overlapping or anything like that. But one thing I will show you is we're going to pull this piece out. We're going to fold this into thirds so that we're not overlapping the lightener, all of that thick lightener onto her really soft blonde ends that are already previously lightened. And I'm going to go in with my next piece. So I am doing two pretty close back to back right here, just for around the hairline to get that nice pop of blonde. So when she wears her hair down or when she wears her hair forward, she's going to see that. But from this, I'm actually going to be leaving up quite a bit of hair out. We're not doing a full thick highlight like I normally do. If you guys have ever seen my full highlighting video, which I'll actually link down below, you'll see that I do them really close and tight. We're not really going for the full highlight look here, so it's okay to have a little bit of dimension in between those foils and leaving a little bit of hair out. This will not only save us time, but it's going to actually add in some more dimension that we're looking for here. I'm going to do a couple more foils back to back, or not back to back, leaving a little bit of hair out right around this hairline, probably two more, and then we're going to do the other side. Okay, so we finished our hairline section, and you guys can see that it's kind of in a V pattern. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going up the head, just kind of going straight across. So we have this little triangle piece, and because we're going to be adding in dimension into her hair, I'm not too concerned about getting it really tight in there, but I do want to break it up and so we don't just have this like dark hole. So I am going to do one straight across. This will act as our dimension piece in there as well. If I was doing a full highlight, I would definitely do this a lot closer so that we don't have that big piece of dimension, but again, it's working with us this time. So just going straight across here, and you guys can see I am having to pull through a lot just because she does have some of these like existing lowlights. So I'm making sure to apply my product really heavily in the area where it's virgin hair, and then kind of feathering it through a little bit so that it's not like fully saturated on the areas where there's those existing lowlights, and leaving that previous blonde hair. So like I said, normally if I was doing a full highlight, I would come in and do a section about that thick and leave it. But because we're not going to be doing that much, we want to leave some dimension. I'm coming in a lot thicker up in here. and leaving out a lot more hair. You'll see that I also do this in the top as well. So just something to be aware of, that it will change your highlight pattern and your thickness and how much you leave out. Every single client is gonna be just a little bit different because we are doing a different technique with this same pattern. And that's why I like to teach these techniques, is because they're really versatile and it comes down to how you customize it for the client or the look they're going for. So again, just kind of feathering it through, making sure to get all of those lowlights. Some of the hair is already previously blonde, so I'm just being careful, but just kind of pulling through right in there. And again, folding it into thirds so that I'm not squishing that hair up on the really saturated part. So I'm gonna continue up her head, kind of doing about 1/2 inch wide sections, doing a full highlight, and I'll show you guys when we kind of get to up in this area. Okay, so I just finished up kind of the back, and you guys can see I did leave quite a bit of hair out, like I said, kind of about 1/2 inch sections. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna release this section, and I'm actually gonna go start kind of at the apex of her head. So I'm going to just find my section right here. And again, if you've watched any of my other highlighting videos, you know that this is how I highlight. I highlight backwards. So I'll just section this out, actually straighten it out just a little bit more here. I'm not a huge person that likes to section out ahead of time and get it all settled. This is just how I learned to highlight, and it works really well for me. And lots of people who have watched my videos, it works well for them too. So I would recommend trying it out. So we're gonna take our very first section here, and I am gonna weed this just a little bit. This is closer to a baby light than like a full highlight. And what I'm gonna do is I'll place my foil and lock it into place. You guys will see I've pulled that tension here with this hand. This hand is holding the tension. And we're gonna just go through and add in our lightener. Now I will leave it just a little bit off the root there because we don't want to cause any bleed marks or anything. So if you're struggling and you've been trying this technique and maybe you're having some bleed marks or some issues, chances are either your section's too wide or you're getting too close or you're moving the foils too much when you pull them back over, and I'll show you guys that in a second here. So it takes some, practice for sure, but it's a really great technique, and I feel like gets it really tight in at the roots. So we're gonna fold that down, and that's the only fold that we're going to do. I'm gonna take a little bit of hair, leave this out, and go in for our next section. Now, like I said, of course, if we were doing a regular highlight, I would be going a lot closer in here. But I am not this time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue doing this all the way down until we meet those foils that I just was showing you guys. And then I'm gonna show you guys how we bring these all forward. So what I do is, as I have finished that section, I take my tail comb and just kind of brace it in there and fold the foils down. So this one I had done because I folded it into thirds, so that one didn't need to be done. But what you want to make sure of is when you're doing this is that these little corners actually stay down, and that you can sometimes see right here, this little corner will sometimes get pulled. So occasionally I'll actually pull this back and just reapply a little bit of lightener right in there to make sure that it's staying in, and tighten it right up in there. So that sometimes happens. You do have to just be careful and aware. You don't want to have any bleed marks happening. And like I said, if bleed marks are happening, take a less wide section. That usually will solve your problems. I take my sections pretty wide just because I've been doing this for a while, and with this technique specifically, and it's something that I'm pretty comfortable with, so I feel good about it. But again, if it's happening, it could just be that the sections are a little too wide. Okay, so now that once we finish this back section, we're gonna spin her around and we're gonna start foiling backwards, but going towards the front. So now that we've finished that back section, all I did was spin her around, and I usually like to leave a little bit of hair out because I don't wanna do a back-to-back foil right there. So I'm just going to clip this little section away, and then we're gonna dive in and get our next highlight going. So again, I am leaving a little bit more hair out. I know I've said that multiple times, but I just want you guys to know that it is a little different than my other foiling videos. If you left this much hair out and you weren't doing a root shadow or weren't gonna blend it in like we are, then it wouldn't look right. So definitely make sure to go watch those videos if you're not planning on doing a root shadow or blending it in like this technique. So one thing I will let you guys know is there's been quite a few little lowlights that I've been kind of pulling out. This is another reason why I love using this brush, because it almost has that tail comb in there. And so I just kind of weave those out and then fold it back up so I'm not having to pull lightener down into that area. And with this, all we do is fold it up like that. We're not gonna fold it any more than that. Again, this is just nice because it's already kind of laying in the right direction. We don't have to fold a foil a million different ways. So that's why I kind of like foiling backwards. So I'm going to continue this all the way forward. We're going to do her mohawk section. But when we get around the hairline, I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do because we are going to do something a little bit different right there. So I'm going to continue this on. You guys can watch, and I'll show you guys when we get to the front. Okay, so I've worked my way all the way through to the front, and now we kind of have about, I would say, almost an inch from the deepest part of her hairline left. So what I'm going to do for this section, because we are going to do a stronger money piece in the front, and so instead of leaving out so much hair, I'm barely leaving out any hair at all because I really want to make sure that this is super, super blonde. And I'm also going to make sure that we're doing more baby lights versus highlights. So I'm going in really making sure that it's like super woven. And just for you guys wondering like what the difference between a baby light and a highlight is, I'm going to show you real quick as I lay down my foil. This is a baby light. You guys can see it's pretty see-through. You can still see through it. A highlight would be a little bit more solid. And I typically don't really like to do highlights around the front at all because I like it to look really natural, and I don't like to have like chunks coming from the front. So I don't mind doing highlights in the internal, like in that mohawk section, but when it comes to around the hairline and stuff, I really like to do more baby lights. Now you guys can see there's a little bit of that low light right here, so I'm just gonna pull that down, lighten it out, pull these hairs aside, and I will fold this foil into a fourth just because it does make it a little bit easier to pull those hair back. So I'm just going to finish up this section, again, not leaving out a ton of hair in between, just kind of a little bit of hair, and we're going to make this money piece really nice and blonde. You guys can see we do have one little kind of widow's peak section, so I'm just going to barely weave a tiny bit out, but I am going to use this as a baby light. Now you could do a smaller foil here if you wanted to fold the foil in half, but she's got enough longer hair to be able to let me do a regular size foil. But I'm just going to pull that through as a baby light, and we're going to fold this down. But that little piece right there will make such a difference versus just leaving it out. So now what we're going to do is, now that once we finish that front mohawk section, we're going to work into our sides here, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing there. Okay, so she doesn't actually have a ton of baby hairs on this side. So normally you guys, if you've seen my other highlighting videos, I would do like 2 foils right here. I'm just going to do one little tiny baby foil right here because she doesn't have a ton of baby hairs. So we're just going to fill in this little tiny widow's peak area. And I did do a foil where I just kind of folded it in half so we'd have a little baby one right here. Especially with fine hair, this is a really great way to do it, just so that you're not having a really heavy foil pulling on these baby hairs. So I'm just gonna foil right in there, fold this guy up, and then we're gonna go tackle the sides. So it's kind of nice, she doesn't have a ton. I think on the other side she might have a little bit more, but you can just see that one tiny little foil, and then we'll move on to down here. So now you guys can see we've got her hairline here, and I'm going to just kind of weave this out a little bit.
So let me sing for you, like the birds in the mountains do, like a child who cries for you, cries for you.
Now for this next foil, I'm gonna do it pretty close here because again, we do want it to be a pretty strong money piece. We don't want it to be platinum right around her hairline, but we do want it to be pretty strong. So I will just do baby lights and then just kind of weave out just the tiniest bit here. So the further back I get from her hairline, I am gonna leave just a little bit more space in between each one of those foils. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna just be doing diagonal backs all the way up into this area. And as we go, I'm gonna increase it and just get about ½ an inch width in between our foils. But you guys can still see it's still pretty tight right up in here around the hairline. And then we'll just get a little bit more and more each foil as we go back. Okay, so for her in-between color, I'm going to be mixing up a 6N and 8 GI equal parts. And the reason why I'm doing both of these together is because I ultimately want a level 7, but I want there to be a little bit of warmth in there, so that's why I'm doing the 8 GI, getting some of that golden in there, but not too golden, and then a little bit of that 6N to make a 7 NGI basically. So we're gonna do that, equal parts of developer, and then we'll mix this up real quick here. In between, I'm also going to be mixing up, well, it's actually not mixing up, I'm gonna be using the Color Care Acidic Milk Rinse from bowlyage, and this is gonna be acting as our blending agent. Now, you guys have seen me use this in my foliage videos, but we're gonna be using it in a slightly different way. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of this into a bowl here, and I'm gonna give myself a thicker brush right here. So we're gonna be using this to kind of help blend out so that we don't get spottiness. Okay, so we finished all of her foils, and what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna start in this bottom section, but before we go in and start applying that in-between color, I'm gonna check some of our foils just to kind of see where we're at. This is a good time to do it. So they're looking good. We still have a little bit of ways to go, but they're looking really nice and good. So I'm going to clip up a lot of this hair real quick here. And another reason why it's great having this hair in between foils is because I can kind of do stuff like this. So I'm just gonna clip this up out of our way. And if you have an assistant, this is a great time to have them help you. But I'm going to be applying it in between these foils. So I'll show you guys. Okay, so as I've moved up the head, I just keep continuing to paint down, and what I'm doing is sometimes you'll see I actually added in these little half foils in here so that I'm not squishing hair onto some of the you know, color that I pulled down a little bit. So I did kind of do that just in some sections where I did pull the color down just a little bit more. You'll kind of see that through there. So I just wanted to mention that, but I'm just continuing to go up through this mohawk section, pulling down section by section. And this is really great, especially when you get to this area. You do have a little bit more space where you can paint this color on in between. Sometimes down below where you folded those foils in half, you don't have quite as much hair or quite as much foil to paint it on. So I'm just kind of blurring that line of demarcation. But what I'm doing, I'm not just painting the color down, as I'm actually taking that blending agent and just kind of painting it on that edge so that we get that really nice blend. Because sometimes what happens is you can create another line of demarcation when you're painting color like this, especially on dry hair. So we definitely want to make sure that we're not doing that. And so this little blending agent is going to just kind of blur that line just a little bit more. So I just keep doing that, just kind of painting it right on there. So I'm just gonna keep continuing going forward, and then when I get to the sides, I'm gonna show you what I'm doing. The biggest thing is with this is you just wanna make sure that you're staying really clean with your sectioning and not getting any of these like end hairs in there or anything like that. So just be really aware of what you're doing and how you're doing this. It may take you a few minutes to get through all of these foils, but it's important to make sure that you're staying clean with it because, like I said, nothing's worse than if you have an end like this squishing down on color like that. You definitely don't wanna do that. So just be precise with this, take your time if you need to, and you'll get better at it as you continue to do it even more. Okay, so now that I've gotten to the side, one thing that you will notice is when I do my foils, there's hair that is hung out over here. So what I did is I clipped this away. Be careful that you're not squishing it back on color over here, so just be aware of that. But I'm actually gonna take this first foil and just kind of pull this back, and this is gonna be our first foil that we're going to work off of. All right, so now that I've sectioned that first foil away, I'm going to actually paint our color in between here and just kind of paint it up in there. Now be careful with this first foil, we're actually gonna come back to it, so I'm not going to squish it up in there, but I have been using these little half foils to just kind of place my color in there. And then I can also put in my blending agent too, so that I'm not, you know, squishing it up over anything like that. So I've been kind of doing this just because it helps me, because she has just enough root that extends past that foil. I want to make sure that we're blending it really nicely. So again, this is why this little foil is really, really helpful. Okay, so now once I finish that whole section, I'm just gonna kind of make sure to blend it really good. We've already used that blending agent in there, so I will keep these little foils in between here just again so we're not squishing it anywhere. But I'm gonna take this whole little section down, move that foil just in case, blend it in between here. And be really careful too, so like these two pieces, this is gonna be that hair left out, so we definitely wanna make sure that we didn't get it on there. So just again, really clean and being aware of where the hair is laying, what's laying down, and what's getting squished in there. So now we're gonna take down this last foil like I clipped away. Again, that's our end piece right here. So we got our last little piece here. Be really careful about these guys because those are also end pieces. Just get it in there real quick, paint it on, have a little bit more depth in there, and then our blending agent. So now we're gonna let her process. We have a few more minutes just with this back section, but again, this has been going for a little while, kind of our blended section you guys can see down in there. So this is probably getting close to being ready to rinse. I'm gonna check her lightener, and then we're gonna let her process. Okay, so for her root shadow, I'm gonna mix it up right now, but I'm actually gonna be doing the same formula as what I did for her in-between color. So the 6N and 8GI, equal parts, and I'm actually, the only difference that I'm doing this time is I'm going to be using the gel processing solution versus the regular processing solution. I always like to use the gel one when I'm doing a root shadow just because it allows me to have a little thicker consistency. So I'm gonna be using that. And as we apply her root shadow, I'm also going to be doing a little bit of bowlyage. Now, a lot of you guys have asked me to do this technique and I haven't done it yet, so I'm going to show you how I do that to help kind of break up her brassy ends, kind of those warm ends at the bowl. So first we're mixing up this root shadow, and then for her bowlyage, balayage at the bowl, aka, I'm gonna be doing some Wella Blonde D'Or. I'm gonna do about a scoop. And I'm gonna do 30 volume here because it's not gonna sit on for very long at all. And with this, I actually like it to be just a little bit thicker, or a little bit thinner, I'm sorry. Thinner than usual because we're gonna be putting it on wet hair and we want it to be really, like the consistency to move really well. So we're gonna almost like over dilute it just a little bit. And that's why I'm doing 30 volume, because we're gonna dilute it with a little bit of more developer. So it's probably not gonna be quite 30 volume just because we're diluting it with a little bit of extra developer than we normally would. So this is like normal consistency. I'm gonna add just a little bit more. And I'll just keep adding until I get to the consistency I like. That feels pretty good to me. It's a little runny than how I would normally do it, and that's like exactly perfect. You don't want it to be watery, but just a little bit more runny. Okay, so I went through and I combed her hair out completely because nothing is worse than trying to deal with toning and doing all this stuff with tangly hair. So I went through and just cleaned it out with my, brushed it out with my wet brush, a little detangling spray. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to just section her hair, kind of how we did originally, and I'm gonna do it in two different sections. So I'm gonna do kind of this top section first and clip this out because I wanna make sure again that we're staying really clean with all of our sectioning and trying to do this in the quickest and fastest way, but also in the cleanest way as possible. So we'll clip this away first, and then we're gonna clip even this section out as well. And I just use my fingers to section. You could totally get a comb in there and get it all nice and tidy, but again, we're just all about getting it quick and fast. So we're gonna start down here at this bottom section, and I'm going to take my root shadow color, and I'm just gonna start applying it basically about an inch down from her roots. And then once I'm kind of done with that little section, I'm gonna take this comb. This is called the Wow Comb. I actually also have this linked in my Amazon favorites. And I'm going to just comb it through, and this is gonna help it blend. But the reason why I like the Wow Comb is it doesn't drag the color down. So we're just gonna use this to kind of blend in that section. We're gonna continue up the head, working section by section, again, keeping it as clean as possible. right, so I finished this side and I did section out her money piece area. We're not gonna be putting any root shadow on this area, so I did section out both sides. And then I did place a little foil over here, just again, to keep everything clean. You guys know I'm a stickler about that. So I'm just applying it about an inch down from the roots and continuing on to finish up this section and just kind of combing it as I go. Finishing up that last little section, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brush here to take each section by section and just kind of again blend it in, making sure that we're getting that in there nice and blended. Okay, so now I have applied her full root shadow except for that top section, and now I'm just going through and applying that bowlyage lightener just to her ends though. So I'm being really aware that I'm not bringing it up really much higher than kind of that mid shaft area, and I'm just kind of blending it through. Now I'm doing this also on wet hair, so that's why it's called the bowlyage, because it allows us to just get kind of that blended look without it being anything too crazy. Now again, be careful going up into this area because you'll get some warmth and some banding through there. So we're just doing it through these ends. Now, on some people's shampoo bowl, you'll be able to do this with the client laying back. My shampoo bowl has this headrest. This is the Minerva Avant bowl. If you guys are curious, get lots of questions about it. But because it has this headrest, it would squish on her hair. So I'm just having her sit up for this part. And then I'm also making sure to kind of clean off my gloves in between as I'm taking my sections, because I want to make sure that I'm not like getting lightener up into any other areas. So I'm just kind of grabbing section by section and brushing it out with a wet brush or the Wow comb, either or. I'm just kind of painting it on, almost as if you would be kind of painting on balayage. I also making sure to get this really, really saturated in there as well. So you guys will see me like pull it through and then just pull it through with my fingers. So I do want this to be pretty wet. Remember, this is 30 volume, so this will work pretty quickly. And we wanted this root shadow to sit on for about 10-15 minutes. So this is gonna work at the same time, kind of saving us that time without having to do a bunch of different processes. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up her final toner, and I want it to be pretty bright blonde, so I'm actually gonna be using our Goldwell Colorants instead of Shades EQ. You guys will see me mix up lots of different color lines here and there, but I just really wanna have that really poppy, bright blonde here. So I'm gonna mix up, this is 2-to-1, developer to color, and I'm gonna be doing 10P and 10V, but I'm gonna be doing majority 10P. So we're gonna do about 2/3 10P and then just about 1/3 10V. All right, let's go rinse her out and put this on. All right, so we are going to rinse her out. You guys can see that we've lifted it as much as we can. She's gonna still have some of those lowlights in there, but it's just a nice pale blonde right there. So we're gonna rinse out her root shadow, everything, and then we're gonna apply this toner to the ends. I'm just applying her toner. We're gonna apply it to the entire head and let it process. And then we'll do her Olaplex number 2, rinse her out, shampoo, and move on. So before I styled this out, I wanted to show you guys what it looks like just straight. Now we just kind of rough dried it with a blow dryer, but look how beautiful and blended this entire color is. And even if you kind of pick up a section and look in between, it's so beautiful, it's so blended. You guys can see just how everything blends together. There's no more lines of demarcation, there's a lot more dimension, and it just looks so beautiful. So I wanted to show this to you guys because I know sometimes when you're seeing hair after it's styled and it's curled, you're not really able to see the dimension and the blend as much as you would when it's straight. So I just wanted to show that to you guys. Now we're gonna go style it out. All right, and here is our official after. Oh my gosh, I love how this turned out. So beautiful, so blended like I showed you guys, and just so much more dimension. This is gonna be a lot more low maintenance for her, and it's just obviously so much more blended. So I hope that you guys learned something from this video, and I hope that you try out at least one of these techniques or formulas. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, seeing the color correction unfold. I have to say, I am honestly so proud of how her hair turned out. I absolutely love how blended it was, and if you guys can't tell, I'm just so excited about her hair color, and she loved it too, which is obviously a huge bonus. So I hope that you guys learned something from today's video, maybe even if it's just one little tip or technique. I know that this was a longer, more in-depth one, but I wanted to share every single step with you guys and every single formula, because maybe you don't have this exact client walk in, but I hope that there's some snippet that you can take and implement into your clientele, or even into a color correction that might walk into your salon too. Now, because I like being completely transparent with you guys, this whole process from start to finish took us about 5 hours. Now, we did do a haircut, we did style her out, so just know that these transformations do take time, and you want to be charging accordingly. I used a lot of hair color, I used a lot of time, and I used a lot of resources for today's color correction. So if you're doing something like this, don't just charge them for a full highlight. There was a lot of steps in between, including Olaplex and the shadow root and the color in between the foils and the bowlyage. Lots of different things. So make sure that you're charging your worth, and make sure that you're planning out time to do these transformations. All in all, I hope that this video is helpful for you, and if you liked it, go ahead and take a screenshot of this video and post it on your Instagram stories. I'd love to see that you're watching this video. Make sure to tag me so that I can see that you're watching it, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram, because I love chatting with you guys and hearing what kind of videos you guys like watching too. And if you haven't already done it, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. I post videos like this every single week, and you're not gonna wanna miss out on any of them. Last but not least, thank you so much for watching this video, and I cannot wait to see you next time.